Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books, where we are doing book reviews of books from every genre, looking for the best of fun, escapist books. Today we're doing a book called Old Man's War by John Scalzi, and this is a first of a series. I think there's like 9 books in this series. It's a science fiction, a military science fiction book, and I will start with the plot. So the plot is that our main character is John Perry. He is an old man on Earth. And Earth there, it's definitely not current with our current history. So it's in the future at some point, but it doesn't seem much more technologically advanced than we are now. Like they don't have hover cars or robot maids or anything like that. It feels very much present day. Anyway, he is approaching his 75th birthday, and on his 75th birthday, he can choose to join the military. Now, I will pause here and interject. When I read the summary, I assumed that meant that he joined and stayed as a 75-year-old man, because the military only accepts people who are 75 years and older, at least the space military. Land stuff on Earth, we don't care about. They may do something else. Anyway, 75 years old, you can join the space military, and I was expecting him to stay 75, but it is not true. What happens is the promise is you get a brand new youthful body, and in return, you have to serve in the military for a minimum of 2 years, but it kind of sounds like nobody serves for just 2 years unless you die. It's a 10-year service. So they go into the military, get their brand new, enhanced, youthful body, and if you're lucky, you will make it 10 years, and then you could live out another lifetime, basically. If you're unlucky, like most people, you will die, but you'll have had a youthful body and be serving your people, humanity, before you do it. So our main character goes and joins the military. And for the first about third of the book, it is his experience with everything up to actually fighting. So it's the process of joining and the process of all the testing and the process of getting the new body. And then there's another chunk of the book, a large chunk, which is the military battle part. And then kind of a final part that is also military battle, but it's kind of has a different flavor to it. The first large chunk is like short snippets of a whole bunch of different battles, and then the last one is one major significant battle in multiple parts that you focus in on in his participation in that. Okay, so that's kind of the plot, the overall story. So some things that I like. So first, I liked the humor. That is something in this book that I really liked. So I'm going to just read you a section on page 84 to 85. Be aware there is bad language in this section. A lot of it repeats the same word multiple times, but it was pretty funny, I thought. So I'm gonna read it just to give you a sample of the type of humor this is. So John just got a computer injected into his brain. It is called Brain Pal. So he is interfacing with it for the first time, the Brain Pal. Your Brain Pal will now be able to take direction from the sound of your voice. Would you like to personalize your Brain Pal now? Yes, I said. Many Brain Pal users find it useful to give their Brain Pal a name other than Brain Pal. Would you like to name your Brain Pal at this time? Yes, I said. Please speak the name you would like to give your Brain Pal. Asshole, I said. You have selected Asshole, the Brain Pal wrote, and to his credit, it spelled the word correctly. Be aware that many recruits have selected this name for their Brain Pal. Would you like to choose a different name? No, I said, and I was proud that so many of my fellow recruits also felt this way about their Brain Pal. Your Brain Pal is now Asshole, the Brain Pal wrote. You may change this name in the future if you like. Now, you must choose an access phrase to activate Asshole. While asshole is active at all times, it will only respond to commands after it has been activated. Please choose a short activation phrase. Asshole suggests activate asshole, but you may choose another phrase. Please say your activation phrase now. Hey asshole, I said. You have chosen hey asshole. Please say it again to confirm. I did. Then it asked me to choose a deactivation phrase. I chose, of course, go away, asshole. Would you like asshole to refer to itself in the first person? Absolutely, I said. I am asshole. Of course you are. So that just kind of shows you the humor. And his fellow recruits also chose, for the most part, like 5 out of 6 of his acquaintances chose similarly derogative names for Brain Pal. And that just kind of gives you a flavor of kind of the humor that's going on in the book. So I liked the humor a lot. It was very funny. I did chuckle a lot. I will say that it was humorous in the first half. By the time you get to the military and the battles, it basically drops the humor a lot. So it still has bits of humor, but not nearly as concentrated as it does in the first half. So there is that. Other things I liked. So there's some expansive world building going on. You have the situation with his military and his new body and the enhancements. There's, science, pseudoscience talk about how their space flight works and operates, and how you can detect ships, and there is a bazillion alien species out there, all of course trying to kill humans and each other. There are some interesting other cultures, we'll say. One of the main cultures that I'm assuming would show up in later books in the series, very much way farther advanced than everybody else, and has a completely unique motivation system for what they're doing, I guess you could say. And that's it's just interesting world building. Not necessarily that I like any of the aliens, but it's interesting. So the author did a great job with making the universe feel crowded and busy and diverse and lots of things going on. So that was good. I liked that. I liked the ending. It felt self-contained. So even though this is the first book in a series, it doesn't feel like it's building up to a sequel. Like there's no cliffhanger or unresolved threads. It felt like you ended it and that was the end of the story, and if you never read another book, you would be satisfied with that. So I did like that. The main character, I'm going to give this a so-so. I liked him. I really liked him in the introduction to him when you're getting to know him. But there were some things about him that I didn't like that I'll come to in a bit. And there were some things that the author dropped a lot of the character development. So the things that happen are plot-centered, not character-centered. But I did like a lot of the characters. So for example, he comes across with clever problem-solving skills. I really like characters that are clever, that are smart, that come up with unique ideas for solving problems that they encounter. And this character did. Several times throughout the book, he comes up with unique in comparison to his compatriots, solutions to some problems. And that's some of the reason why he survives, some of the reason why he gets promoted. It turns out really well, and I like that about that character. He wasn't super brilliant. This was not somebody who came up with, completely super genius ideas, but just enough above the rest to be realistic in that sense. So I liked that about this character. It was good. There are some things, however, I disliked about this book. The first and the biggest thing would be the gore and the death and the depressing aspect of once he got to fighting. So once he starts fighting, you have short chapters, maybe half chapters, whatever, segments of focusing on this battle and a whole bunch of people die. Okay, we focus on the next battle and a whole bunch of people die. And we focus on the next battle and a whole bunch of people die. You can pretty much assume that almost everybody he knows, is acquainted with, meets, stands next to, they all die. and it becomes a little bit, it was almost to the point where I'm like, if this author doesn't start doing something different, I'm not going to like this book, because it dropped the humor and added in this depressing everybody dies death thing, and I wasn't happy with that. However, before it got to the point of being just too much, it did switch to the third section where you focus in on a single battle with multiple stages and meeting new people, and that one saved the book, let's just say. So that middle section where it's just a whole bunch of unrelenting everybody dies, maybe there's some humor in that in unique ways that people die, but it wasn't very fun. And during that, you don't get a lot of emotional development in your character. So this is the part where he starts feeling a little cookie cutter. He's there, he does, he leaves. He's there, he does, he leaves. You don't get a lot of, yes, he's, getting more depressed because it's becoming monotonous that everybody's dying. But anyway, I didn't like that part. So that's my biggest negative about this. Another negative, I will say, this one's a minor one, but it's there. I did not like the way the author handled sex and romance in this book. So there's not much you would call romance in this book, really nothing romantic. But there is quite a bit of sex for several pages and references to it later. And I didn't like the way the author handled it, mostly because it was like, you get a new body, you're young, let's have sex with everybody that you can for long periods of time. And it's just, to me, it almost felt, I didn't find that attractive, or it was kind of more repulsive to me. I was kind of like, ugh, just because there's no emotional intimacy in this. It's just, look, I'm young and I'm energetic, get in bed immediately. And it's just, I didn't like it. Maybe guys really like that kind of stuff in their books, but I like the emotional connection there, and there was none, so I didn't have any interest in the sex. It is a little bit explicit, so there's several pages of this. It's worth reading the book and skipping that part, as far as I'm concerned. I will say one other thing about sex in this book is our main character. He talks to somebody and said, yeah, I had an affair once. He's been married to his wife like 50 years. Yeah, I had an affair once. My wife wasn't really offended by that, just that I lied to her. And then she had an affair, so we're pretty much even. And my respect for the main character dropped dramatically at this point, because anybody who has that attitude towards cheating on their spouse and their spouse cheating on them, I do not have a lot of respect for. So that negatively impacted my appreciation for both the main character and the book. But some people don't care about this sort of thing, so I just bring that up. The next and my last thing about the book that is a negative, and this is a very minor one because there's a whole series. So there are several things about this book and the world building that left questions for me. And perhaps they're answered in later books, but on the other hand, it doesn't give the impression that they're going to be answered. It's just like, this is the way the universe is. So for example, one of the things would be Earth itself is isolated. There is nobody on Earth knows anything about what the battles out in space are like. They don't know anything. That at 75, you can be recruited to go into a space military thing, but that's all you know. You assume you're going to get a youthful body because they're like, I'm 75, if I walk the stairs too hard, I'm going to fall down and die. So obviously they're going to do something, but it's an assumption. Nobody out in space can communicate or go back to Earth. And that's a world building thing. The author can do that, but I don't feel like it's ever given a reason. Why does the Space Command people want to keep Earth in an isolated bubble? I can kind of speculate some reasons, but none of them seem like very good reasons. Like it could be, oh, I have such fond memories of Earth that I want to preserve it, so I will keep them in ignorance. Okay, that's weird, but sure. Or maybe it's like, oh, we really want all these people to be recruited, and if they knew how bad space was, they would never come to us and get recruited. That's a reason, but That seems like a weird reason, especially considering their technology. And this leads to another thing that I was weird about. So you can apparently, you can create a new body that's from your DNA and transfer your consciousness to the new body, and the old body like dies because you're no longer there. Okay, according to those rules then, you need a live consciousness to go to a body. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. You can't just make a whole bunch of soldiers. But then later on you find that they can make a whole bunch of soldiers. So where does the consciousness come from? And it sounds like they just wake up in this new body. So you wonder about that. You kind of go, okay, then why aren't they just making a whole bunch of people? Why are they recruiting from Earth to begin with? What was the point of that? I guess they have life experiences, but throughout the entire book, you get the impression that these other soldiers are better soldiers. So you don't need the other soldiers. I mean, it was just one of those really weird things that you were like, why would the military do this? So to me, there was several unanswered world-building questions that made me kind of scratch my head. Again, they could be answered in later books. I don't know. I haven't read them. But so minor negative. This is the kind of, nitpicky thing. I like all my loose threads tied up and didn't quite make it there on some of those unanswered questions that I had. They weren't plot points though, and most people probably wouldn't even notice those points at all. Okay, overall, I give it a 2 thumbs up. I liked it. I recommend it if you like military science fiction. And so, yeah, try Old Man's War if you like that kind of thing. Okay, on to part 2. I'm going to do a fantasy next. It is The Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent. And Lady Trent is not the author, so this book is clearly a fictional historical biography or something like that, dealing with dragons. And the fantasy looks fun and Victorian age, kind of a historic fantasy. So that sounds fun, so that's what I'm going to do next. And I hope you will join me, and thank you for watching.